And now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in a Rallies analyst, Dr. Constance Ikoku. She joins us live on Rallies News.
Good morning, Benga.
Good morning.
Good
so
morning,
lovely to see you
Bimbai. Lovely to see you, Bimbai. Welcome back.
Good morning, Doc. Thank you. So good to be back. Goodness me. Occupational hazards of motherhood, but we thank God.
I know. You wear all hats. It's not easy, but you're doing it. Well done.
Great to see her back on her feet.
Yeah, definitely. Good to see you. All right, let's see what's making the headlines this morning. This day newspaper first. Barao North will repay Tinubu's kindness in 2027. President Rallies support for Dangote highlights his contributions to economy. Ojulari, Nigeria lost over 600,000 barrels of oil to Pengassin 3-day strike. Daily Sun, PDP won't die, governors. Then we also have any public officer accused of certificate forgery owes Nigerians duty to come clean. NBA, Peter Obi. Leadership newspaper. Minister Naji's alleged certificate forgery will act after court verdict, says presidency. Fire engulfs Rivers State Secretariat. Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Nigeria needs 27 million jobs to avert labor crisis. Daily Independent. Growth yet to fully translate into enough jobs, Tinubu admits. ADC knocks Tinubu for retaining minister accused of certificate forgery. Academic technologies, universities threaten strike, give FG 14 days. Vanguard newspaper, federal highways of horror, collapsed roads making life unbearable for travelers. 2027 presidential poll, court asks to restrain Jonathan, INEC. The Punch newspaper, Pengassin fires back as Shatima defends Dangote. Court remands Lagos accountant over alleged 200 million theft. New Telegraph, Nigeria lost 200,000 barrels per day to strike, according to Ojulari. And Akpabio Kalu IPAC drums support for gender electoral reforms. Then moving on to the international headlines this morning. Daily Mail, biggest phone gang smashed. Newspaper, UK Gaza protests going ahead today on anniversary of October 7 massacre. We also have metro.co.uk, time to call your lawyer. The Daily Telegraph, our sack activist judges to tackle pro-migrant bias, says Generic. Daily Express, Tories pledge blitz on scumbag store thieves, Financial Times. Britain becomes Chinese electric car maker BYD's largest overseas market. And finally, The Guardian. Labour's new visa rules put NHS at risk, warn nurses. All right, so let's go back to this day newspaper to begin our discussion. So in this day this morning, the presidency unapologetically going all out for Aliko Dangote and his company. The caption there says, President Rallies support for Dangote highlights his contribution to economy. Declares Nigeria greater than Pengassin. Describes Africa's richest man as an institution. The president was speaking through the vice president, Kashim Shettima, yesterday at the opening ceremony of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG. Shettima said, and I quote, "How we treat this gentleman will determine how outsiders judge us." He also said, if he, Dangote, invested $10 billion in Microsoft, Amazon, Google, probably he might be worth $70 billion to $80 billion by now. But he opted to invest in this country, and we owe it to future generations to generously protect, promote, preserve, and protect the interests of this Nigerian. Very interesting comments coming from the vice president / the president. There's no doubt that Dangote is a visionary and a leader in business, providing jobs as well as making money. Support for Dangote group of companies, is good, a lot of people will say. However, it is also important that we do not lose sight of the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of businessmen and women who have equally staked their money, their future in Nigeria, investing here, believing in the country. They may not have as much privilege and access and skill as Dangote, but how we treat these men and women, not only Dangote, will also determine how outsiders judge us. Vimbai, let me bring you in here. What are your responses, or how would you respond to this story?
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head with this, that as important as it is that this vote of confidence is sent out for Dangote and the Dangote refinery, and just the incredible work that he's done and the contribution that he's made, which is of course unparalleled globally, it's also an important reminder for us to take a look at the challenges, the structural challenges that led us to get to where we are today. So it's not enough for us to endorse one individual today who has made such a huge stake without taking a serious look at the structural issues that have led this Dangote, who is now said to be an institution, not an individual, to have the challenges he's having. Number one, you look at the lack of trust that has been created in the judiciary, because ultimately the type of disputes that you see happening, labor disputes between unions and employers, are supposed to be settled in our labor courts. However, when there's no trust, there's no reliability in those institutions, what all people will always fall back on is self-help. And this is what we saw in this instance. Now, beyond self-help, we also see the issue of the growth of a, if I may call it, a cartel union, which is that you're seeing a Pengason behaving as a monopoly in itself in the labor union. So again, we ask ourselves, how is the government acting to avert this not only happening in the critical oil and gas sector, but in other sectors as well? Yes, we know there's the FCCPC for other businesses, but in this instance, for me, it made me think back to what happened in the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. Remember, there was that infamous mine workers strike where they tried to cripple the energy supply of the nation. And how was Margaret Thatcher able to overcome that? Well, they were able to create alternate sources of energy supply. So we're asking ourselves, okay, beyond ensuring that our legislation is clear, that strikes are not supposed to hinder essential services, are we also clear about the fact that this type of economy that we run, where we're so reliant on one source of energy, means that we're setting ourselves up for economic sabotage anytime a group like Pengason decides to act monopolistically? So I think it's great for the presidency to stand in solidarity with Dangote, but I think there are bigger issues that are lingering under that need to be addressed beyond us posturing and doing this sort of elite solidarity. Yes. Let's fix the critical issues so that all businesses can thrive, those investing $1 and those investing $10 million.
Exactly, yeah. And you do not need only one Dangote. You need as many Dangotes as possible, because there's only so much jobs that Dangote can create.
I think if I could chip in here.
Very quickly.
Yeah, I think the issue here brings out some economic conflict, as well as resonates some ethical dilemma here, and which brings us to the point of an ethical solution, which is the utilitarian principle, which states that when there is a kind of dilemma, you go for the greater good. I think it's important for us to know that the West cannot help us to tell our story. This issue dates back to during the time of Obasanjo regime, and he was worried about the uncertainty and the crisis in the oil sector, and he called Shell to invest in the refinery, to come and take over the refinery. Shell said that the profit margin was too low and there is so much corruption within the sector. So Dangote and some team of investors were ready to invest about $750 million here. And unfortunately, that was the period of the transition to Yar'Adua regime. And some people went to Yar'Adua to say that there was no transparency in the bidding and all whatnot. And unfortunately, Yar'Adua cancelled this process. But the former President Obasanjo told him that, but you know that government cannot run this refinery.
All right.
That the way forward is to have an investor. And we saw what happened. Up till now, just in 2021, $1.5 billion was invested in this refinery. I think the time has come, and we must face the truth that that is the way to go.
All right, much has been said about this particular topic. Say all you want, you still need labor unions in the country. Let's go to the second story. In this day, Barao North will repay Tinubu's kindness in 2027. That's the Deputy Senate President, Jibrin Barao, says Kano State and the entire North will respond in kind to the President's gestures in that region in terms of development and goodwill. This was said at the newly renamed Yusuf Maitama Sule Federal University of Education, Kano, of which the President approved the upgrade to a fully fledged university. Not sure about Barao's promise with regard to 2027, although the North has enjoyed patronage from this government. The President is currently unpopular in that region. This means that he will have to fight for votes like any other candidate come 2027, except something extraordinary happens, Benga.
Well, it's obvious that the race towards this all-important political transition has started without the umpire blowing the whistle. And that resonates that debate on pre-election campaign. It's showing that the landscape is getting more heated up with promises and all that, and realignment. Just about 2 months away, the North were agitating that the region has been marginalized. But the Budget Office came up with investments from the federal government of Nigeria showing that with data that the North indeed has the highest investment in terms of federal government projects. But that data, that proposition has also been hotly debated. But when you look at the issue now, it shows that there is a bit of desperation coming from the APC. Jibrin Barao, the Deputy Senate President, is an APC member, so it's understandable that he would campaign for his principle and to sustain the political structure that has made him the Deputy Senate President. But when you also look deeply, we need to look at the gaps in governance. It's real time to sift out politics away from governance and really look at the issue of out-of-school children, in which the North is still home to majority of this, the entire number. So the reality, the issue of malnutrition in the North also needs to be taken into cognizance. And many of these things are development issues. The issue of security in the North, banditry in the Northwest, extreme violent extremists in the Northeast, all these things it's been tied to developmental gaps.
Okay.
So the president needs to be focused on that rather than all these pre-election campaigns. It's a bit of governance distraction. All
right, a lot to chew on that. That was Barao
campaigning
for him.
Forget the fact that.
Go ahead.
Yes, and we also can't forget the fact that Kano has so far been Kwankwansia. And we've been hearing murmurings about whether Kwankwanso is going to make that leap into APC and so forth. So all of this is making for a very interesting conversation. Still stands to see, like Benga said, how it translates into governance.
That's right. All right. Staying with this day, one more story. We have Ojulari on the window. Nigeria lost over 600,000 barrels of oil at Pengasyn's 3-day strike. New Telegraph was reporting 200,000 barrels. Whether it was 200, 600, staggering loss of Vimbai for only 3 days. It explains why the authorities were frantic to end that industrial action. Very quickly, your take on this.
I mean, very quickly, so 200,000 barrels per day for 3 days is 600,000 barrels in total. If you look at an average price of $66 per barrel, we lost about 57.4 billion naira in crude oil earnings due to the strike. Now, this doesn't even consider the fact that we have now seen an increase in pump prices from NNPC following the strike. We've also seen gas shortages, and we're seeing an increase in gas prices, specifically in the Southwest, although Ojulari said that this is temporary and that it should even out. But yesterday there was, overwhelming amount of videos online of people who were queuing for cooking gas. And this just goes back to the same point that we made earlier, that it's one thing to stage a strike and to down your tools. It's another thing to, you know, create almost a sense of economic sabotage with essential services. A strike, even if you look at the astutes of the International Labour Organization, strikes in general are not supposed to impact essential services. So, you know, these huge economic losses have been made. Earlier, I made those points about the structural issues. The ball is still in the government's court to see how they will resolve these persistent structural issues that lead us to, number one, self-help, number two, being dependent on, you know, a single source of energy supply for our energy security. And then, of course, there are also now allegations that the Pengasyn president didn't get consensus, national consensus. So is this a legal issue that can also be taken up, you know, as to how the due process that is followed before a union as massive as Pengasyn goes on a strike? So still several things that are falling in place there, but the economic losses beyond the fiscal level on our pockets, those who are in the southwest and went to buy cooking gas over the past couple of days, again, received a shock to their pockets.
All right, moving on to Daily Sun, PDP won't die. Governors assure members of equity and fairness. Governors of Adamawa State, Amadou Fintiri and Plateau Caleb Mutfwang, at the inauguration of a committee in Abuja, are promising that governors elected under the platform of the People's Democratic Party have resolved not to let the party die under their watch. Fintiri is the chairman of the PDP National Organizing Committee for the November 15 National Convention. Fintiri says no party member will be denied the opportunity to contest National Working Committee seats. On his part, Mutfwang acknowledged their job is cut for them. Indeed, tough jobs they have ahead of them. The convention is mid next month. I mean, one way to look at this is that whatever is happening in the PDP reflects a deeper decay, one where a once powerful party, you know, or political gathering becomes directionless, unable to inspire hope and shape the future. Benga, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this reflects the growing uncertainty within the party, within the rank and file of the party. It shows that the party is really defragmented when you watch the telltale signs, the writing on the wall for a party that's holding its national convention November 15, and there's still a deep division within the rank and file of the party. Don't forget that the weakest 6-point demand, where not much has been said about whether the party has exceeded it, and most of these 6-point demand have a court backing. So it throws a serious allegation. It's not just a matter of opinion. So how will they find a political solution? This is a party that even most of the governors are considering defecting to APC few months to the convention. So a lot of political uncertainty tied to this convention, and it remains to be seen how they will be able to navigate that stormy road towards 2027 political transition.
Absolutely.
As a lead opposition party, it raises a lot of concerns about the state of the nation's democracy.
It does. Moving on to Leadership newspaper, ministers alleged certificate forgery will act after court verdict, says presidency. This matter regarding the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Uche Nnaji, is now in court. The minister is now asking the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, to release his transcripts to him. But also an interim injunction asked the court to stop UNN from, quote, tampering with his academic records. In spite of all the brouhaha, the presidency, through its spokesman Bayo Onanuga, says there's no need for a comment at this time. Instead, the president will respect the judicial process. Well, the president himself was entangled in a certificate scandal earlier during the campaign, and so was his predecessor, late President Muhammadu Buhari. Both men survived it, although Buhari's case was a bit different. The bigger discussion here may be about credibility in public office and how this undermines trust in government. Cases such as this also question the ethical standards of leadership, the rigor of the vetting process. Public officials go through screening and vetting. It then begs the question, is there a thorough or cosmetic ceremonial vetting process? Vimba, if you can share your thought on this.
Oh, Dr. Constance, you know the eyes always have it.
Yes,
they always have it, no matter what's inside the
yes.
file. You know, there's always a consensus about, you know, what will be done, which has earned this, specifically this National Assembly, that unfortunate tag of being rubber stamp. Because we ask ourselves, we've seen, thank goodness we're in the era where so many of these sessions are now broadcast and we get to see, were they really grilled? When we look at some of the ministerial screenings, there wasn't very thorough grilling. There wasn't, it was just another walk in the park.
A bow.
So, you know, it shows you the body language that it goes on behind the scenes. After they give you, you know, a lightweight little, you know, pleasantry of an interview on the Senate floor, I doubt they're going to go and start scrutinizing the paperwork in your folder. But having said that, for me, one of the critical issues here is our inability to step aside. I think that we need to start setting a precedent in this country where if you are being investigated, nobody is claiming that you are guilty. However, one should be able to step aside for a period of time until their investigation reaches a natural conclusion. In this case, he's very fortunate. They said the court will be sitting on the 5th of November, which is, you know, speedier than most cases that we see. So I think it would be prudent. We've had several cases, like you said, of certificate forgery. If you remember, there was Stella Odua, Princess Stella Odua, although hers came after the BMW scandal. So she had already been asked to step aside from her office. But I think we just need to see more of a culture where, okay, this is the allegation against you. We're not saying you're guilty. It's sub judice. However, while the investigation continues, please just take a back seat and then your duties will be reinstated once you clear your name. I don't think that's too much to ask for. It'll go a long way in building public trust.
Okay, just to chip in, sorry, Doctor. Sorry, it's very important. I think that when you look at the process before it was screened, it's very important, and this is where I advocate for strengthening of the institutions that makes our democracy more efficient. He submitted a 109 page of his credentials to both the DSS, the Senate, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. So is it that this institution did not scrutinize this certificate? So it should, in a situation where the institutions are working, it should not get to this place. I'm not concerned whether he's telling the truth or not. That is left for the judicial process, which I call for a speedy dispensation of justice or of investigation in this process. But I call strongly for the need for the country to strengthen its institution. It's the way to go.
All right. Vanguard newspaper, 3 stories there. I don't know how we're going to manage, but let's try. There are federal highways of horror. Collapsed roads making life unbearable for travelers. There's a special report on that. You know, crater-like potholes, collapsed drainages, broken shoulders, or more pronounced, especially now during rainy season. There's also that 2027 presidential poll. Court asked to restrain Jonathan, and INEC, Boko Haram waging a war of evil, not religion. Irabo, ex-chief of defense staff, General Lucky Irabo, shared his insights about Boko Haram in his new book, explaining the group hides under Islam to inflict suffering, pain on innocent Nigerians, and that claims of fighting for religious purity is simply a cover. And that's profound from him because, you know, he was chief of defense staff, and so he knew much more about Boko Haram and the fight. There's also that a lawyer approached the court to seek for a perpetual injunction restraining former President Goodluck Jonathan from contesting in 2027 and to bar INEC from accepting Jonathan's name published by any political party as a candidate. Wonders shall never end, as they say. It sounds ridiculous, but this is Nigeria and this is happening. It was initiated by someone. Let's move to Daily Independent. Growth yet to fully translate into enough jobs, admits Tinubu. The vice president spoke here in Abuja at the opening ceremony of that NESG. He also promised that government is working hard to make sure that they close the job gaps. A lot of promises. It's no longer campaign. It's time to work. So people are looking for results. And then let's go to the international headlines. Daily Graphic, stop glorifying corrupt wealth, traditional ruler tells Ghanaians. And Zenith Bank Ghana marks 20th anniversary with a Thanksgiving service. The Citizen newspaper, SA ready for new politics. The ANC has failed voters and the DA is slammed for its unequal treatment of communities, this report says. And enters a new party, Unite for Change. We'll see how far that party goes. And then there's AGOA must seek new markets. The expiry of the African Growth and Opportunity Act means that South Africa needs to find new markets and aggressively pursue BRICS partnerships. The Times newspaper, Tories promise stop and search bleeds in crime hotspots. Looks like they're turning to the United States of America, Donald Trump style. And then Daily Mirror, hope in hell. Peace talks begin, but bombs still fall 2 years after in Gaza. And finally, to iNewspaper, UK Gaza protests going ahead today on anniversary of October 7 massacre. We have about 2 minutes. Vimbai, very quickly, your thought on any of this, and then I come to Gwenga.
Oh.
Okay. Are you still with us, Vimbai? Okay, looks like we lost her. Go ahead, Gwenga.
Okay, it leaves a very emotionally it runs a very deep emotion in me that we could see another October 7 with the war still, with peace still nowhere in sight, and the theaters of war in the global arena. It questions the world leaders' intervention. The United Nations just had its General Assembly. We've seen talks, beautiful rhetorics. But in terms of action, where is the peace? Where is the love, just like Black Eyed Pea? And it calls for a kind of rethink. We need to rethink our global instrument of peace. We need to rethink our membership of the United Nations. We need to rethink how so many other things, because it seems that this ceasefire deal is being shrouded with a lot of back-scene politics.
Yeah. Well,
very unfortunate.
Global governance is completely broken, and that's why a lot of people are advocating for a renewed form of international governance. All right, those were your headlines today.